We are joined by Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio. Senator Vance, appreciate you calling in.
Hey, guys. How are you?
We're good. Haven't talked to you in a bit, J.D. Thanks for being here. Let's look, there's a few things we want to get to on the legislative side, visa overstays, the Ukraine accounting amendment, some stuff you're working on. But as you know, you saw this morning, there's the meeting between Trump attorneys and the special counsel Jack Smith in relation to January 6th. What's your sense of what's happening here, and what are your expectations in the days ahead?
Well, look, I think Trump will get indicted for something related to January 6th. It'll be a complete sham, of course. The entire prosecution is predicated on a false idea of what Trump did on January the 6th. He never encouraged any violence. In fact, he actively encouraged the protesters to stay peaceful. But this is useful for the Biden folks politically. I tend to buy the idea that this helps them in the primary, but they're trying to set up this sort of series of facts where the average, pretty low information voter thinks that Donald Trump is a crook, and not that, in fact, Joe Biden is a crook and he's using his Department of Justice to go after his political rivals, which is exactly what's happening here. The fact that this comes literally the day after the Hunter Biden plea deal falls apart under just minor investigation by the federal judge there, just a little bit of peeling back the onion, and the entire plea deal fell apart and really, I think, revealed the corruption of the Department of Justice. Shocking that this prosecution is coming the day after, but it just shows how brazen these guys are. I mean, they know they have the media. They know they have the capacity to tell a story that's totally untrue. So they're just going to shove it down everybody's throats and hope that it works out politically.
You went to Yale Law School, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Same law school that Hunter Biden went to. I don't know if you guys overlapped at all. I think he's older, so I don't think that would be the case. But when you look at Hunter Biden's resume, we were talking about this earlier. I went to law school, came out 25 years old, working to try to pay off my loans like most people who go to law school. Hunter Biden almost immediately went to work for his dad's top campaign donor, MBNA, in-house, making hundreds of thousands of dollars. He was making over $1 million a year of counsel at a big firm. For a lot of people out there who understand the practice of law, this is crazy. And what they were attempting to ram through yesterday was a protection basically for Hunter Biden, not only for failing to pay millions of dollars in taxes, but also from any future potential prosecutions that he might face for the bevy of felonies that were embedded in that laptop. And while we are talking about the Hunter Biden clear felonies, they are trying to put Donald Trump in prison for the rest of his life. Purely from a legal perspective, again, with your background, have we ever seen anything like this in American legal history? And what do we have to do to clean all this up?
No, we haven't. And I actually did know Hunter at Yale Law School. He was my crack dealer for all those late nighters that I was pulling. No, I obviously we never crossed paths before. Never have. But look, here's the basic issue. What they're doing with Hunter Biden, and I got to be honest with you, I don't really care about the president's son. I care about the president of the United States.
Yeah.
And what they're doing by effectively giving Hunter Biden legal immunity for everything related to the crimes committed over the last few years is they're effectively saying we're not going to investigate anymore. So all of the corruption, some of it is almost certainly real, some of it we can only guess at, but all of that corruption is going to stay hidden because the Department of Justice is giving this guy a get-out-of-jail-free card. So this isn't about Hunter Biden. This is giving Joe Biden a get-out-of-investigation card in the midst of a presidential election while they're simultaneously prosecuting Donald Trump for a couple of different things. Now, I have been really fired up about the first Jack Smith prosecution of Trump over classified documents, because I think it goes to the heart of presidential authority. What they're really saying, everybody admits that Trump could have classified any document that he wanted to. So they're trying to throw him in jail for failing to dot the I's and cross the T's on his own administration's declassification process. That is insane. Even if you grant everything that they say that Donald Trump did, and by the way, I don't, but even if you do, you're trying to throw the guy in prison because he didn't fill out the right paperwork? That's crazy. And to do it in such a politically charged way, that's the most bizarre thing. Because look, we've seen wrongdoing from the left and from the right over the course of American history. Using your own Department of Justice to go after your political opponent, it really is, it can't be said enough, banana republic stuff. It is intentional election interference. They don't care about whether Donald Trump broke the law. They care about Donald Trump might be able to win re-election as president in 2024. And they're using, 230 years of goodwill about our law and order system. They're destroying it to prevent the wrong guy from winning in 2024. That's all this is about.
We're speaking to Senator Vance of Ohio. And Senator, the visa overstay legislation you're working on, this I see here, it would require some immigrants to deposit up to $15,000 to prevent overstay. The border is a huge mess, but visa overstays are a big problem, too. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so I was sort of shocked at the scale of this. So you have about 3 million visa overstays. That's 3 million illegal aliens, people who have no right to be in our country but are staying. And we know, of course, that the Biden administration has rapidly expanded the visa program. They give people visas. They say, come back, we'll adjudicate your case. And that never happens. Of course, a lot of these people disappear in some way. So there are all of these different ways in which people overstay their visas. Sometimes they're given legitimate visas to study or so forth, and they just overstay their welcome. What we're basically proposing, put a little skin in the game so that if they overstay their visa, they lose a lot of resources in the process. It's sort of a self-enforcement mechanism. And it's just, one more tool in the shed we need to enforce our nation's immigration laws. We're really suffering under a global cabal of people who don't think that nations should have borders. You see it in the visa overstay crisis at the southern border. You see it in the lack of borders, not just here, but you see it in other countries as well. There's this entire idea that nations should not be able to select who becomes citizens, and we have to fight back against that. And this is one way in which we're trying to give enforce folks the tools to fight back against the violation of our borders.
Senator, I want to go back to what you were just laying out about this attack, and I understand there's lots of other things going on, but I think it goes to the essence of really our ability to have free and fair elections. How do you think Merrick Garland sleeps at night as the attorney general who is in charge of trying to put the chief political adversary of his boss in prison for the rest of his life? I think it is a failure of attorney general dumb status, the likes of which we've never seen in the history of our republic. What do you think's going on there? Is he totally captured? Is he a true believer? How did he end up leading a Department of Justice that would turn its back on all of the history of American justice?
So I have a pet theory on this. I have no idea if this is true, but I'll lay out my psychological theory. So Merrick Garland, I met him one time, and he seemed like a totally reasonable guy. Not a guy on the Supreme Court, but a totally reasonable guy. This is probably 7 or 8 years ago. He was nominated to the Supreme Court. His nomination of course, killed by Senate Republicans, as it should have been, and it broke him. I think the guy became a full-bore radical in response to that experience, and he has decided to take it out on the American people and the American system of law and order. Everything gets caught up, of course, in the 2024 presidential politics, but if you walk through the number of cases, the Catholic pro-life father who was arrested like a thug in front of his 7 children for the crime of peacefully protesting, or the FBI investigations into parents who were protesting at their kids' school board meetings. What you see is a pattern of a Department of Justice that really uses the power of the state for political prosecutions. You can't avoid, and this is what Merrick Garland is fundamentally.
Senator Vance with us right now from Ohio. Appreciate you being with us, sir. What do you think happens with the possible Hunter Biden plea deal at this point? As Clay pointed out, you went to law school. Where do you think that goes?
Look, I think if you really try to what happened yesterday, I think there's a lot of evidence that the Hunter Biden, the prosecutors and the defense attorneys tried to pull one over on a judge who was a lot smarter than they bet. And as soon as she started to sort of pull at the thread of that plea deal, everybody realized this was incredible corruption. I don't think that she would have accepted the plea deal And I think she also revealed the way in which they had hidden what the implications were, which again is that it's not just Hunter Biden would go free on those charges, but that they would not investigate him for anything. And that's the fundamental problem here. So where do I think this goes? It's tough to say because I think it's clear now this judge is not going to accept the full-scale get-out-of-free jail card for Hunter and Joe Biden. And so they're going to go back to the drawing board. I'm sure they'll propose something else. If this judge is as good as she appears to be, then we may very well be in a situation where the American legal system, while Merrick Garland is putting it under a lot of stress, it's actually working the way that it's meant to, and the DOJ might have to do its job a little bit. That would be a good thing. It would be welcome. I'm not celebrating just yet, but, man, it was a good sign that just very, very minor scrutiny of that deal, and the whole thing blew up.
Last question for you, Ukraine. We heard a lot about this counteroffensive and how successful it was going to be on behalf of Ukraine. It certainly has not taken off this summer, as I think it's fair to say Zelensky and others would have hoped. What should happen in Ukraine from your perspective for the United States position, and what do you think is happening going forward?
Well, look, I think the counteroffensive has been a failure. I take no pleasure in saying that. But, look, this has clearly been for about a year now. The Russians aren't gaining much ground. The Ukrainians aren't gaining much ground. The question for the United States is, do we want a 10-year war of attrition in this region of the world? It'll cause worldwide energy crises. It'll cause worldwide food crises. It'll, of course, kill a lot of innocent people. Do we want that? We want to leverage the fact that we're the main funders of the war on the Ukrainian side, use that leverage and bring this thing to a close. The idea that the Ukrainians can continue to fight without our billions of dollars of support is ridiculous. If we wanted to, I think we could bring this war to a close very quickly. I think it's a good sign that all of the marquee presidential candidates on the Republican side are sounding the alarm about our long-term investment in Ukraine, that it has to eventually stop. And what I think needs to happen is very simple. President Biden, or whoever succeeds him, to go to Zelensky and say, we've done our part, we've done more than enough, we are done funding the conflict, you need to figure out how to bring this thing to a close. And I think it would take a month if that happened. The war cannot continue without America's support, so I think we should be trying to force a peaceful settlement.
He's Senator J.D. Vance from Ohio. Appreciate the time. Have a good weekend, Senator.
Thanks, guys. Take care.